me back. Right.
What the fuck is up?
Right, who are my subscribers right now? I need to give someone one of these, right? Sounds good. Let's fucking go, mate. Time to actually check. There we go. Sounds good. I got my fingers. They're fucking so cold. I bought the cap. What do you mean? What cap? I got fake teeth in, Grand. Because when you're homeless, you decide to not care about your teeth. I'm paying the consequences now, later in life. It's fun. I would not recommend it, Grant. Take care of your teeth. No, I went to the dentist. The dentist, bro. The dentist. That's why I needed to leave so fast. Not Denny's. The dentist. Denny's. That's kind of funny though. Imagine it being like, I need to go to Denny's that bad. You don't understand. I kind of like this multi-chat thing. It looks nice. Does this thing have custom CSS? What was the custom CSS for this? Inspect? Oh, it does. So you read we'll have fun, okay? It's not like I wanted you to read it not so you could be like, oh my god, he's critiquing me. I just want you to have some rebuttals or like have thought about the counter. At least a little. Okay? And pragmatic is what we're going for. Because the truth is that politics is difficult because no one can ever get what they want, right? So to deny that, I think, is to be naive when it comes to politics. But we'll have fun trying to figure out. That way I can better understand what your theoretical writing is. Where the fuck is the CSS in this? Body. Well, you sent me a Henderson article, didn't you? Was that not supplemental information for your government? The Henderson article. Henderson, by the way, Henderson's not a good economist. I need to make that clear instantly, okay? Okay. Henderson is a neoliberal, neoclassical. He is routinely wrong a lot, just like Krugman, who I don't know why you would even bring up Krugman when it comes to universal healthcare. Krugman has, I think, written very little about that. I think probably Kenneth Arrow, someone who studied with Milton Friedman, would be a better person to bring up, but he just probably doesn't want to bring Kenneth Arrow up because Kenneth Arrow actually contributed something in economics. Yeah, it's from the Hoover Institute. I follow the Hoover Institute. I do because I have to, but the Hoover Institute is beholden to, I'm sure you already know this, some very large wealthy donors. That's about it. The people who go to the Hoover Institute do it for a paycheck, not because they want to find the truth in economics or like understand economics more. I haven't specifically, but I mean, no healthcare system is going to be perfect, just like any government. But I don't think a cross country comparison analysis is not a good idea in economics, right? Like, you don't want to compare a population of 10 million, which Sweden is, I think, 10 or 40. I can't remember. I think it's 10. To a population of 370 or 340, sorry, for the United States, 350 million. And then there's a lot of other issues that arise out of cross-country comparison analysis. Like, hey, Dennis. Sure. I mean, no country, none of these democratic socialist countries actually have single payer. They have like a universal healthcare, and then they have options on top of that because things like dental are not considered healthcare in that way, right? So it's unacceptable, Dennis. How the fuck could you do that to me? What the fuck's wrong with you? Fucking unacceptable, dude. I can't believe it.
a view of politics and morality that seems pretty twisted to me. Let's listen to Shuon Head describe, quote, these people in question.
You can't say to these people who are celebrating this and justifying this, you can't say, what if that was your dad or your brother getting killed for their opinions, because they've already cut those people off. They've already cut those people off out of their lives. And posting videos and pictures of Charlie's wife and young kids will not move these people at all.
I have to say, this is probably one of the best critiques I've heard of Charlie Kirk's situation so far, because, and I like Dan here. I think he's phenomenal as like a communicator, and
because
if I was going to choose someone, he calls himself on the left. If I was going to choose someone who is on the left of like a really good communicator and someone that people should listen to in earnest, is this guy.
They hate their lives. They hate their families. They are atomized bug people. They are the unfortunate product of modern society, and I feel bad for them. I do. I pity them, and I wish I could help them. But I have bugman fatigue.
In a different section of the video, Shuon Head points out that these people aren't just random people being happy about Charlie Kirk being killed, but that these are teachers, professors, HR employees, pediatricians, etc. And she puts up a news story supporting what she is saying. A news story written by Raw Egg Nationalist, who is not a journalist I'm familiar with, I think. Now, of course, it would be easy to clown on this video, given that this is the only cited news article and it's from InfoWars. But I actually want to engage on her point here. The point being that the behavior of these people is harmful, worth talking about and condemning, because these people inhibit roles in society that are influential even in just small ways, like a teacher would be. Now let's take a look at the characterization of Charlie Kirk we are given.
But I think what happened to Charlie is hitting differently because, like I said on Twitter, he was just a fucking guy. He was a fucking podcaster. He was a guy who talked about politics. He was a guy who had conservative beliefs. Not everyone knows a billionaire CEO or a powerful politician, but they do know somebody with conservative beliefs.
That's quite the contrast, in which someone uploading a TikTok, being happy about Charlie Kirk getting killed, becomes a bug person with influence on society, while Charlie Kirk, one of the most influential political actors of the last decade, gets reduced to someone holding conservative beliefs and talking about politics. There are very few individual people in American media who had as much clout as Charlie Kirk did when it came to influencing people directly, agenda setting within the right wing, and getting Republicans elected throughout the country. He has over 1 billion lifetime views on YouTube and led an organization in Turning Point USA with an annual revenue of over $80 million. Turning Point also has a PAC. They endorse candidates and spend money in races. He was unquestionably hugely influential on the body politic of the United States and the Republican Party in particular. Now, without a doubt, some of my viewers will see the glaring contradiction in how a person who uploaded a TikTok is judged compared to Charlie Kirk and come away thinking that Shuon Head's video must be in bad faith. In no way could you point to a teacher as an influential position in society while labeling Charlie Kirk as just a random dude. But I really don't think that's true. It's clear that Shuon Head is struggling emotionally in this video and has a hard time making sense of why what she calls bug people would behave this way and that it has a negative effect on society. What I think is much more likely to be the reason behind this, rather than bad faith, is an immature understanding of politics. Later in the video, Shuon Head preempts some criticism, saying that she doesn't care about the bad things Charlie has said in the past, and that he undoubtedly had, quote, bad takes, but that words aren't violence, so she disregards it. And here I just want to lay out something in detail. It's not that words are violence, but rather that if you have a political belief, you will most likely act on this political belief. And if you not only hold a belief, but spread it to millions of people and convince them to think like you, that effect becomes even larger. Those people then tend to vote for other people who hold these beliefs as well, and when successful, enact laws that make everyone else act in accordance with those beliefs. In other words, politics affects people's lives, often in profound ways, and that is true even if you are just a political influencer. It's very easy to just label Charlie Kirk a dude who talked about politics if you don't want to figure in the actual
All right, I'm gonna set up that thing for us, Grand. Okay, at the same time.
material effect on people's lives of the politics he did everything to spread throughout the world. At the heart of this is a very human inability to grasp the effects on something unless they are individualized. When a single person is shot, it's easy to see the fallout on their family and friend group and feel bad for them. That's natural, that's human. But as the group becomes larger, it becomes harder to grasp and feel any sort of emotion for them. So I want to try to individualize Charlie Kirk's effect on the world a little bit here. One of, if not the topic Charlie was most spoken out about was the issue of abortion, on which he held and propagated the belief that abortion is immoral and a heinous act regardless of the circumstance. According to him, this included even fringe cases of SA, and that there are next to no cases where an abortion would ever be medically necessary. As he said in his Jubilee appearance, it is a growing consensus in the pro-life world that abortion is never medically necessary.
Crazy take,
Now,
by the way.
that's a belief.
Yeah, that's
It's
a
an
fucking
extremist one, considering
forgot
this
about
goes
that.
further than even most laws restricting abortion passed in recent years. It's a belief that Schuon had probably disagreed with, but at the end of the day, it's just a political disagreement, right? Let me now just individualize the material effect of this belief and show it to you the same way that Charlie Kirk's killing has shown us the suffering
Get
of
fucked.
his family. In May 2023, the Washington Post published a portrait of a Florida family. Deborah Dobert had discovered she was pregnant.
This is Dan Arrows. He's a German political commentator who, in my opinion, is fantastic. He's says he's on the left, so I'm gonna take him at his word. He's a leftist that is giving an opinion on Charlie Kirk's assassination. Okay, and obviously this topic is I don't like the fact that he got assassinated. But I think Dan does a good job here. USA is more radical. Actually, it depends on the country, right? There are a few European countries that I can think of are right on board with us. Turkey's right up there, for sure. Germany is not as radical, but very much becoming one again. I think Turkey and Hungary would most definitely be, if that's considered European Union, European country. Yeah, depends. I don't think European countries, for the majority of them, are in the same position that the U.S. is in though right now. The U.S. Yeah, the U.S. is in a deeper descent right now. I think Europe still has time to steer away from it. The U.S. I'm not so sure. I don't think so. All right. I think I'm going to turn this on so I can still use it. But I think Dan here does a good job with trying to rein in the fact that people were abusing what they thought was outrage of Charlie Kirk's death, right? Um, because I obviously heard that a lot, that people were like, I can't believe people are celebrating it. And the truth is, it really probably wasn't that many people. And the propaganda was thick on that, okay?
in August of 2022, and she, along with her husband Lee and their 4-year-old son Caden, were looking forward to welcoming the
So, Charlie's views on abortion, for instance. The thing about politics is that even though I didn't want to call Charlie a fascist yet, I still think he would have became one. He did bus 80 buses to January 6th. 80 buses of people to go try and overthrow the fucking government on behalf of a lie. And those type of actions have consequences. Not for him. I mean for like America. So like maybe in the wake of a shooting, I've felt to myself like I was disgusted by the act itself, I guess. He's a little indifferent. He's in Germany, so it doesn't really I'm sure it doesn't feel anywhere close to the same. But politics is something that people are naive about. They think that politics is not everything. And politics in a way is everything. And it has consequences, especially when it comes to actions and how you live out your politics. So like what he's doing right now is showing the very real reality and consequence of Charlie Kirk essentially writing abortion law, because that's what he did. He advocated through a PAC for the people in Florida. He formed the opinions of which the law was written about. And tens of thousands of women are now dead. It just doesn't look as gnarly as a gunshot. So I think he does a really good job of grounding the moral panic that people have as it comes to this.
the fourth member of the family.
It's not pretty, by the way. So, like, he brings up a very a thing about abortion, or like sometimes complicated pregnancies I forgot about, is when the baby or the fetus has like a defect in which talk to the leftists about the difference between USA and Germany, democratic system, and then she say, yeah, but Hitler. Huh? Wait. Wait. Why'd she say that? I'm so confused. Why did she say that? That's definitely not. Was she memeing? Anyways. I only got around to reading what you were saying. Some fetuses can develop like defects in which if they don't produce a hormone, then like the kidneys won't form. I think it's fair to say the German democratic system right now is more secure than the US one. Just because the Weimar Republic, which was a constitutional republic based off of the US, which had a lot of problems because it was made in 1918. It was relatively novel and change was demanded very quickly. I don't know how she could just appeal to Hitler. That'd be stupid. Germany is in a much better place than the US. Much more secure democratically right now. I just
Family. Early doctor's appointments showed that the fetus was healthy and thriving, so the family started making the appropriate arrangements of buying clothes, making space for the baby in their home, and thinking about names. The name they decided on was Milo. Months later, in November, A routine check showed that their fetus had a lethal congenital disorder that prevents the development of the kidneys. Without kidneys, a fetus cannot produce the amniotic fluid necessary to help the lungs expand. Sadly, there was no way that the child she would give birth to would survive. Their request to terminate the pregnancy was denied, as the fetus still had a heartbeat, which in Florida negates any exceptions of fatal fetal abnormalities. This family, the Doberts, was forced by the state to carry their child to
The judicial branch did not support the democratic nature of the Weimar either. Because all of the judges and judicial system was the monarchy, was from the monarchy. And I think in 1887 or 1892, when was it? 1887, I think, when the Kaiser took over, right? Am I off a little bit? It doesn't matter. The point is that when the Kaiser did take over, they went through a re-education for a lot of the like judges that they had, and then they were beholden to the Weimar Republic once the Weimar Republic was formed. So they actively were in position to damage the Weimar Republic once it was formed because they held allegiance to the Kaiser. But they didn't really have any other choice because they couldn't just get rid of them. They needed people who knew what the law was and to be a judge. So they went with the best option they had, which was just hope that in time they'll come to accept it, right? But it didn't really work out for them because from the moment they did, the openly right-wing courts that supported the monarchy were chipping away at a lot of the Weimar Republic systems.
term, even though there was no chance for the child to survive once the umbilical cord had been cut. Months later, Deborah went into labor and was accompanied by her husband and her father, who, despite all odds, hoped for a miracle and that the baby would somehow pull through. After going through the painful hour-long process of giving birth, Deborah and Lee held their baby and watched it struggle and gasp for air, unable to breathe. This
Awful.
lasted 99
Really awful.
minutes until Milo passed away. The family held a funeral service for Milo, and after everyone else had left,
Well, Graham, we're going to get to that in a second. I hope you know that. Trust me, we'll get to that. I hope you have prepared at least.
Milo's grandfather, Peter Rogel, stayed staring at the urn, trying to reconcile his own misgivings about abortion with the torment he saw his daughter and family go through. Quoting from the article, "Now he was haunted by the sound of Milo gasping for air and the sight of his body struggling to ward off a death that had been inevitable for 3 long months. To me, it's just pure torture," Rogel said. "The law has created torture." This story, which stayed with me ever since I read it and which creates a dread inside me as a young father myself, is merely a drop in the ocean of suffering of the politics that Charlie Kirk enthusiastically supported and spread. So much so that I even had trouble finding the story again, because there are just so many instances of a family going through something very similar.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, Charlie Kirk didn't cause the Potter syndrome in Milo. He didn't sign the heartbeat bill into law that forced his family to go through hell. He didn't overturn Roe v. Wade. If Charlie Kirk never saw the light of day, it's not unlikely this story would have happened just the same. But in his life, he was clear that this kind of suffering was not just perfectly acceptable, but necessary to have his own fundamentalist views placated. Charlie Kirk wanted to see and did everything in his power to see come to fruition a total ban on abortion, except for when delivering the baby would end the life of its mother. And even that exception is a total joke, because in a medical emergency, it's rarely 100% clear cut like that. But what is clear to the doctor in question is that
Bogos, this is something I think you should listen to, eh?
if there is a shred of doubt that delivering the baby would 100% kill its mother, his life will be ruined and he might get thrown in jail. Now, I assume Shoe-on-Head and others will be puzzled by me even bringing up Milo's story, considering
photos of
that
myself.
there is no obvious
Can't do it,
connection
guys.
here. And here is a
Hey,
point
gentlemen.
I really want to drive home. Politicians pass laws that affect the lives of people, and those Republican politicians that passed Florida's
Because this is a very real reality when you decide to try and legislate abortion. This is what happens.
heartbeat bill in 2022 are to blame for the suffering that this family had to endure. But that is not the end of the story. This law didn't get drawn out of the hat at a random chance. Politicians, Republican politicians in this case, pass laws on issues pressing among their voter base, made to be pressing by powerful actors within their base.
I'm not though. That's the thing. This family right here, Bogos. You should listen to this again, eh? Here. Do you know what month she found out her kid couldn't form kidneys?
And she, along
It was the 7th month.
with her husband Lee and their August of 2022, and she, along with her husband Lee and their 4-year-old son Caden, were looking forward to welcoming the 4th member of the family. Early doctor's appointments showed that the fetus was healthy and thriving, so the family started making the appropriate arrangements of buying clothes, making space for the baby in their home, and
Again, how about Bogos? Stop talking, stop typing, just listen. How about that? Yeah? Because your cutoff date, I already brought up, 7 months. Your 7-month cutoff date means this would happen to this family again. So listen to what happened to this family.
thinking about
What do you think?
names. The name they decided on was Milo.
Bogos, stop fucking typing. Listen to the video.
Months later, in November, a routine check showed that their fetus had a lethal congenital disorder that prevents the development of the kidney.
What 700K people? There's tens of thousands of people like this, yeah? Or do you mean like a fetus is literally murder? You don't actually believe that's the case, right? Because at the end of the story, Ralph Johann, okay? The mother has to watch her baby gasp for air, knowing that the baby was going to die because it could not form its lungs because it had this defect. But nonetheless, Florida forced her to take it to birth. And then she had to watch her child die in front of her for an hour and a half. Watch it change color. She can't, Bogos. That's what I'm telling you. Fetuses are not given the same legal rights as someone who is alive and birthed, okay? So this fetus here, okay, was going to die. 100% was going to die. So Florida forced this person to carry it to term, give birth so they could watch it die. Bogos, watch the video.
Without kidneys, a fetus cannot produce the
No, it's not a similar debate to that. No. Someone with euthanasia is someone who is alive and birthed. So they have protective rights established by the government. That person has been alive and is a person. It's completely different. A fetus is not a person yet. Bogos, you are. That's the thing. Your fucking abortion policy, the way you think about this, causes this to happen. Just because you want to fucking snap your hands and make it go away doesn't make it not happen, because then families like this have to fucking deal with the consequences. Hopefully not yours.
Amniotic fluid necessary to help the lungs expand. Sadly, there was no way that the child she would give birth to would survive. Their request to terminate the pregnancy was denied, as the fetus still had a
No one. Oh my god, you're so fucking stupid, Bogos. Watch the video. There's a reason why no one will do what you are saying. There's a reason no doctor is going to do what you said.
heartbeat, which in Florida negates any exceptions of fatal fetal abnormalities. This family, the Doberts, was forced by the state to carry their child to term, even though there was no chance for the child to survive once the umbilical cord had been cut.
This isn't the majority of abortion cases. Bro, I'm fucking losing my mind, Bogos. You have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Literally zero fucking clue. What is the percentage of abortions in the third trimester as it relates to a medical condition? Go, Bogos. 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Shut the fuck up. What is the percentage? Energydometer, you'll find out why that is not going to work. Because the life of the mother in danger means no doctor, no practitioner will do anything until they're in sepsis. I asked you a question, Bogos. What is the percentage of third trimester abortions that are medical procedures or medical reasons? Go. What is it? Five seconds. Or do you not know? You don't know. You're just going to keep typing more sentences instead of fucking answering a simple question. And then say things like, this isn't the majority of abortion cases. Like, the fuck are you talking about? You don't even fucking know.
But months later, Deborah went into labor and was accompanied by her
This was the 7th month, by the way, Bogos. They found out about this congenital heart defect in the 7th month.
husband and her father, who, despite all odds, hoped for a miracle and that the baby would somehow pull through. After going through the painful, hour-long process of giving birth, Deborah
Bogos, what is the percentage of third trimester abortions that are medical reasons? Do you even know what the third trimester is? Isn't that the whole fucking topic of conversation right now? What is it?
and Lee held their baby and watched it struggle and gasp for air, unable to breathe.
I know, and you're fucking pissing me off already because you won't answer this question. Why won't you answer it?
This lasted.
Why won't you answer this simple question? Is it because you don't like the answer, or? Just listen to this.
And baby pull through. After going through the painful, hour-long process of giving birth. Deborah and Lee held their baby and watched it struggle and gasp for air, unable to breathe. This lasted 99 minutes until Milo passed away. The family held a funeral service for Milo, and after everyone else had left, Milo's grandfather, Peter Rogel, stayed staring at the urn, trying to reconcile his own misgivings about abortion with the torment he saw his daughter and family go through. Quoting from the article, "Now he was haunted by the sound of Milo gasping for air and the sight of his body struggling to ward off a death that had been inevitable for 3 long months."
Oh my god, then stop fucking. Just do us all a favor and don't talk at all sometimes. How about that?
To me,
If you want to confidently say some of the stupid shit that you just said, at least have the fucking respect to know what it is.
it's just pure torture.
Like, why do we just feel the need to have opinions on things when we've done literally nothing to understand our own opinion or like the thing?
Rogel said, "The law has created torture."
I don't want this to happen, Bogos. This.
That had been inevitable for 3 long months.
'Cause this is what happens.
To me, it's just pure torture, Rogel said. The law has created torture. This story, which stayed with me ever since I read it and which creates a dread inside me as a young father myself, is merely a drop.
You just seriously have no fucking clue what you're talking about. You're like, if there's a medical issue, Bogos, it doesn't work.
In the ocean of suffering of the politics that Charlie Kirk enthusiastically supported and spread. So much so that I even had trouble finding the story again because there are just so many instances of a family going through something very similar. And don't get me wrong, Charlie Kirk didn't cause the Potter syndrome in Milo. He didn't sign the heartbeat bill into law that forced his family to go through hell. He didn't overturn Roe v. Wade. If Charlie Kirk never saw the light of day, it's not unlikely this story would have happened just the same. But in his life, he was clear that this kind of suffering was not just perfectly acceptable, but necessary to have his own fundamentalist views placated. Charlie Kirk wanted to see and did everything in his power to see come to fruition a total ban on abortion.
You just fundamentally have no fucking clue what you're talking about. You just think it's fucking gonna work that way. Except that's not how it happens. And people die or become infertile because of your stupid ass fucking opinion. That's the most fucking annoying part about it, dude.
Abortion, except for when delivering the baby.
I think abortion laws should be as soon as you are birthed. It is very clear we can give government rights and protections. That's when you're a person. Because we are mammals, we have shit pregnancies. They're complicated and they suck ass.
Would end the life of its mother. And even that exception is a total joke because in a
You know, you're super fucking pro retarded. Because people literally die because of what you are espousing right now. That's the problem.
medical emergency, it's
No. I just understand biology and legal arguments. Because giving personhood to a fetus is impossible. We've already been over this. There's no point at which you can just randomly pick. The only thing that is clear is when you give birth. Then we can give personhood.
it's rarely 100% clear cut
Your nuance causes people to die.
like that. But what is clear to the doctor
Oh my fucking God, bro. because that's how we give governmental rights. Bogos. I'm not hung up on personhood. I'm hung up on the idea of what we give rights to. You can't give rights to something that's not a person. It's literally in the definition.
In question is that
Fuck.
if there is a shred of doubt that delivering the baby would 100% kill its mother, his life will be ruined and he might get thrown in jail. Now, I assume Shoe-on-Head and others will be puzzled by me even bringing up Milo's story, considering that there is no obvious connection here. And here is a point I really want to drive home. Politicians pass laws that affect the lives of people, and those Republican politicians that passed...
I don't really care about the theoretical argument because it's not in the Bible, Bogos. So I don't care if it's clear that people don't know that they're delusional, but I don't like when people want to use delusion to legislate on behalf of that, which ends up fucking killing people or ruining the lives of people who are persons already. Or the fetus.
Florida's heartbeat bill in 2022 are to blame for the suffering that this family had to endure. But that is not the end of the story. This law didn't get drawn out of the hat at a random chance. Politicians,
I don't even know where to begin on how fucking stupid that is, dude. I'm using a legal argument. I'm using a biological argument. And nowhere am I using a fucking theoretical religious argument. It's not an open-ended question. Okay? Energy dominator. Let me show you something. I've done this to Bogos, okay? What point do you think a fetus should become a person? Right now. 10 seconds. When do you think a fetus should become a person? Where is it? What point? Why? Why? At conception? Why not before? Okay, so that's a theological argument. That is nowhere found in the Bible. It's not a good one because God never mentions this. It's actually invalidated by fucking Deuteronomy itself when it talks about the law concerning violence. So do you have a better explanation than one that's metaphysical? I'll respond to it in a second. Personhood doesn't matter. Okay, got it, Bogos. Do we have an argument that's not based in metaphysical delusion? Okay, so at what part of the Old Testament? What part of the Old Testament even says something remotely like that? Birth is really the only option of when a personhood is attained. It's just that simple. Personhood is assigned at birth. Yes, it's a legal definition. It doesn't have anything to do with whether it's a life. If someone conflates those two, that's their problem, not mine. We're talking about giving government rights to something. That's what personhood means. Okay, well, you don't have to ask rabbis, Energy Dominator. Are you Jewish? Because the only authoritative Jewish text is the Old Testament, the Torah. So, what part of the Torah are we using to justify this? Because rabbis are not authoritative. Rabbis do not have any authoritative messaging or text as it relates to Judaism whatsoever. The Talmud is not authoritative. I'm confident in that. I'm sure you would know that as well. The Talmud is not an authoritative text. Only the Torah and the Pentateuch, which is in the Torah, are authoritative texts. If the Talmud was authoritative, then every Talmud on the earth would be somehow more of the correct one than the German one or the Babylonian one or some other one. It's a personal interpretation. It's no way authoritative. No, it is not. I don't know where. I mean, did you go to Hebrew school? It sounds like if you're Orthodox Jewish. How many Talmuds are there on the planet? How many Talmuds are there throughout history? How could that even be authoritative? There's only one Torah, one Pentateuch. That's a fact. A Talmud, which one is the correct one? The Babylonian one? Is this the authoritative one? This one? What about the Germanic Talmud? Which one is the authoritative one? So that one of them is more authoritative. See, that's the problem. That's not how it works. So, Rabbinic Judaism, okay, is a splinter that the Babylonian Talmud also was put together in 600 AD. So it puts together a lot of Jewish laws, but in no way is this an authoritative text. This is not authoritative. This is used to supplement the authoritative text. There's a difference. That would be like saying, Augustine or something like that, or Ignatius are authoritative. That's not how it works. Not in Judaism, at least. Some people might say the Catholic Church is authoritative as it relates to Christianity, but Judaism is much older and does not follow the same principle. Bogos, you literally sound fucking retarded. I'm not even gonna get, like, you have no idea what you're saying. You just live in a fantasy land, and it's annoying.
Politicians in this.
At least maybe learn what the percentage of third trimester abortions are fucking medical reasons. I really don't need to. I'm going to be honest with you, man. I wouldn't use ChatGPT for that, okay? We have where's the one I'm looking for? Valid is not the same as authoritative. Those are completely different things. And again, there's more than one Talmud. So are you going to choose which ones you think it's an oral? The Talmud existed before the Torah was canonized, right? Talmuds are different. There's like one in Germany, there's one in Babylon. All of those are authoritative. There are not only two versions of the Talmud. I don't even know how you could actually say that. Are you kidding me? What is the Talmud, by the way? Is not the Talmud just a conglomeration of individual rabbinic teachers? Or are we talking about something else? For instance, these rabbinic teachers. As in commentary on the Mishnah, which is Mishnah is oral law, if I'm not mistaken, correct? No, this person does not seem radical. Much of the Talmud is just supplemental material on the Torah or the Tanakh. So, which one of these is the authoritative one, though? No, Bogos, I don't want to you're making me fucking angry, so I don't want to keep going. What does generally more authoritative mean? That's my issue right now. What does that mean? How can you be generally more authoritative? We're talking about like literal religious authoritative text. There is no general. It's a binary. It's 1 or 0. Well, the Talmud is rabbinic interpretation of the Mishnah, which is supplemental to the Tanakh, which is the Old Testament in a way. Yeah, so that doesn't mean it's authoritative. That means neither of those are authoritative. Authoritative is the Tanakh. That's what authoritative text is in Judaism. Obviously, it's been renegotiated, I guess, maybe, in highly authoritative. Okay. I guess certain sects of Judaism think this way. But there's only one authoritative text, and that's the Torah, as far as I'm concerned. And that's the core authoritative text. Yes, it is. That's what the Talmud is. It's written in Aramaic, the Babylonian Talmud, and it is a lot of individual rabbis doing Mishnah, which is the oral tradition, the oral law, and then compiled together in like from 2 to 600 AD. That's it. While it might be important to Jewish people to learn so they could better understand the Torah or the Tanakh, correct, Energy? It is fundamentally still different than the Tanakh, which is the authoritative text. Says the man who didn't even know the percentage. The Torah is something that was canonized after the Second Temple destruction, okay, by Jewish people, probably because of the fact that Jerusalem was sacked. And the Torah is the moment in which they took oral tradition and various writings and various Jewish religious foundational texts, right? And they canonized them. What comes afterwards is another Talmud. Like Talmuds existed before the Torah, and then Talmuds existed after. Talmuds are just, again, individual rabbinic interpretations of Jewish oral teaching. So the Mishnah. The Torah is the Old Testament. Samurai. I mean, the Tanakh is the Old Testament, but you can't have two authoritative texts like that. There's no such thing as interpret the authoritative text authoritatively. That's just not a thing. You use it to help you understand the authoritative text. That's what the Talmud is. So now that we have that established, okay? It does, because you said most abortions are not for that reason. It's 97%, Bogos. 97% are medical reasons, you fucking idiot. God. Except it doesn't, and it never will. Sorry, Bogos. Try again. So, energy. Where in the Tanakh does it say that the soul is implanted at conception? It doesn't. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's not a person yet, Bogos. I've already destroyed every single thing you've said over and over and over again. And then you get stuck on why are you so obsessed with personhood? Because legally, to give someone rights, it's necessary. That's all it means. And it's just, there's no fucking point anymore. Is it in Leviticus? What the fuck is it? It's in Leviticus, right? Bruh. How can I remember this shit sometimes? Pisses me off. Where's the law concerning violence? Ah, sorry, it's Exodus. No, it is. It is still an argument. It's not a person yet. Are there two people in that scenario? So no, it doesn't make sense. No, I don't take any weight loss pills. Or know anyone. Although I do know there's a lot of information on the new GLP ones, agonist inhibitors or whatever, right? Yeah, just give me one sec. This is the Hebrew energy dominant of Exodus 21. Okay? Exodus 22, sorry. Tell me when you're done reading it, okay? So, right here. No, I didn't. It doesn't work because I didn't do that. The green is English. Read the green. The green from here to here. Okay. So this is Exodus, okay? Do you know what this means? Like what is happening in the story? No. Close. It says her fruit depart. So that means if two men are fighting and they accidentally cause the woman to miscarriage, as in they accidentally cause the pregnant woman, the fetus, to die or miscarriage, right? What happens? I don't think abortion is a murder. So I see no reason to think that abortions for non-medical issues is relevant. I've already told you that, bogus. The Bible is noticeably silent outside of this one passage, which I don't think is a good way to say that the whole Bible like endorses it or something. I think this one passage though. I'm gonna bring up in a different format. Okay. No, it's not, and especially not in late term. So it says when two people are fighting and injure a pregnant woman so that there is a miscarriage and it no further harm follows, as in the fetus dies, the one responsible shall be fined what the woman's husband demands. Got it? You understand that there's a payment that needs to be made, right? Now, it furthers to go on to say this. If any harm follows, as in after the fetus is terminated, you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Hammurabi Code, Levitical law, right? What does this mean? To who? Who is it talking about? It says if any harm follows. Correct? What does follow mean in that sentence? And it's in the, I wanted to show you the original Hebrew. No. So it's talking specifically about a woman here, right? If the woman miscarries, then you pay a fine. That's it. If something happens to the woman further than miscarriage, then we have Levitical Hammurabi Code. What does that imply? Um, to preface this, I'm not like anti-religious, by the way. I don't like when people have theological arguments on abortion for the reason that Samurai said earlier. The Bible doesn't really talk about it ever. But when it does talk about abortion in Exodus, it implies that the fetus is not worth the same life as the woman. It's very clear. In fact, kind of unremarkably clear, unfortunately. Does this mean that the Bible endorses abortion? No, it does not. Does this mean that the Bible thinks that fetuses are worth nothing? No, this is in Exodus only. Okay? I am not an anti-theist, so I think religion is fascinating, so, and I can't say it's wrong, so. But I am opposed to using religion to your own ends. So why do we think the writers in Exodus wrote this? So Bogos is saying this as well. He's just being stupid about it. Okay. The reason that doesn't work is because fucking Bryce. The reason that doesn't work is because the danger for the mother when the life's mother is in danger is impossible to figure out. They have to wait until you've hemorrhaged a ton of blood and are about to die. You become infertile the majority of the time. And now you've ruined an entire family from having kids because you forced her to fucking carry a pregnancy to term. Or they need to be in sepsis. So simply saying, I believe that we should just, not do anything until the mother's in danger is someone who has never even tried to understand a single thing about this topic whatsoever. And it's painful for me to hear, if I'm being honest. It doesn't matter. It needs to be life-threatening. It needs to be hemorrhaging blood. It needs to be sepsis. It needs to be something like that. No doctor is going to ruin their career on a maybe. Bogos, that's what happens, though. That's what happens. Look.
As I said, the story of Milo.
No, Bogos. You can't. That's the problem.
Is just one of many examples. I could just as well have picked the story of Samantha Casiano from Texas, whose fetus was diagnosed with a condition preventing the skull and brain from fully forming.
No, they will not, Bryce. No, they will not. What state are we talking about? Wait, when was this? The 90s, Bryce? We didn't have abortion laws that stopped that back then. What do you mean? I'm talking about abortion laws. Like abortion laws right now in Florida and in Texas. No, because the truth is this is what
Due
happened.
to Texas heartbeat bill, one
This is what happened.
story of
No, they can tell. No, they can. But this is what happens, Bryce. Watch.
Milo is just one of many examples. I could just as well have picked the story
No, they know exactly the child can't live, but they force the women to carry it to term.
of Samantha Casiano from Texas, whose fetus was diagnosed with a condition preventing the skull and brain from fully forming. Due to Texas heartbeat bill, she also had to carry her baby to term, despite there being no chance of survival. After giving birth, Samantha had to watch her daughter Halo struggle, suffocate, literally change color right in front of her for 4 hours before Halo passed away. There are, of course, also at this point probably thousands of cases where women
Tens of thousands. Tens of thousands.
were allowed to terminate their pregnancies due to the
Because these abortion laws make them do that. They have to. Straight up.
non-viability of the fetus, but only after
Not every complication in pregnancy is going to mean that the fucking woman is going to start bleeding then. But when it comes to the defects like this, yeah, they force you to carry it to term to give birth to a dead baby, essentially, that dies in like 90 minutes after.
developing sepsis,
It's crazy.
hemorrhaging large amounts of blood, and becoming infertile because
This is the only thing. Even then, they still won't fucking...
terminate their pregnancies due to the non-viability of the fetus, but only after developing sepsis, hemorrhaging large amounts of blood, and becoming infertile because hospitals
Yes, I can, Bogos.
are scared of terminating a pregnancy too early. Now, I don't want to suggest Shuon Head is okay with any of this, but Charlie Kirk was. He was perfectly fine with this as long as he got his way. On the issue of gun violence, he now famously said that he was okay with it if that was the price the country had to pay for the Second Amendment. So I have no
Statutory law. Agree. Roe versus Wade is what you're referring to now, right? And the fact that it's not really a good law. It's almost unconstitutional in a way, the way they made it, right? Yeah, it's not. But, you know, they didn't really produce an alternative. Yeah. That's what they should have done. Should have been passed through Congress or something like that, right? Would be better. I mean, in this case, Bryce, I think legislation would be fine. Like, if we... like, legal personhood, right? What does legal personhood mean? I mean, the moment we let people be incorporated into the legal system or give governmental protection and rights to, that's pretty much what it means, right? It's just whenever you do that. Bryce is one of my best friends. This thing's dank. Bryce is one of my gym buddies, though. But even if we live far away, we still do it in spirit. Learning how to defend yourself is not moral in and of itself, though. Samurai. I don't really think it'd be a moral argument there. Bogos, you kind of are. Because if you think terminating a baby, a fetus, for no reason, that's what fucking contraception does. A lot of the time, it actually aborts a fucking egg that's fertilized. You are. You're just okay with it for some reason? What do you think contraceptions do? They do abortion every single fucking month. Yeah, after the famous Bogos development of now it looks more human or something. What is that point again? What's the certain point? What is the point? Okay, so you do know the skin forms pretty much last, right? Like the dermis. Remember? Do I have to show you this again, Bogos? Like, at what point? Because these are all continual processes. Look, the eyes don't get fully formed till the end. What point of the eye timeline would you say is a person? So it's the CNS, the central nervous system. I don't even think you're correct there, by the way. I mean, central nervous system is continuum. So it has a CNS from week 5 to week 40. That's how it usually works, Bogos. No doctor is probably willing to give you an abortion at month 7. If I'm not mistaken. But maybe Bryce can tell me because he's had 2 kids. I'm actually not. There's not a lot of literature on that one. But most doctors, I think, will not do that. Yeah, it's not a straight line answer, Bryce. That's what I'm trying to get him to understand. If you try to create a fucking answer for this that's earlier than birth, you end up with more problems. No. Most women do not. It is a very personally traumatic experience. Even if they're going to get rid of the kid, right? To get rid of the fucking fetus, it's not going to be easy, so. I don't think so, Bryce. Not in this circumstance. I think this is just, we should give personhood, which means rights to the fetus, the moment of birth. It's just the most clear point where we don't have issues. Up until then, it's impossible because of the many factors in play. Because pregnancies are risks. It's impossible to know if we did the 7-month thing, like Bogos is saying, and all of a sudden we give rights to the fetus at the 7th month. And if your wife is too overweight and she miscarries because she's too overweight, did she murder the kid? I don't know. Like, what legal implications? I think the legal implications are worse if we try to legislate personhood before birth. Because if you do it like the 7th month again, then everything that's a risk, which is all pregnancy is now, did she murder the fetus? Well, there has to be a moment that we give personhood, which is legal protection. It's fundamental. Common law? like every single state be different? Every single city? I'm actually unfamiliar with common law standards. One sec. Oh, isn't this what Roe v. Wade was though? Or was Roe v. Wade a response to? Roe v. Wade was a response to legislation then. It was a rule? Is there a difference between a rule and... It was a rule, okay. So common, is it common rule? I'll make it a little faster. Like this. Rules or standard. A rule is a specific law that removes the need for interpretation of a situation and circumstances. I feel like that is the worst thing we could have put in abortion cases. Is this accurate? What the fuck? Oh. 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 Actually, this seems kind of interesting because we have a rule where do you still think this should be used for pregnancy stuff though? Because pregnancies are still, I feel like the amount of litigation that could still take place is a little too much, right? That's actually energy dominator. That's kind of what Bryce is trying to say right now, I think. If I didn't know this, so technically, see, Roe v. Wade was a rule. I didn't know this, and a rule is there's no interpretation of it, whereas a standard is there's a room for interpretation by a judge, and that kind of is an answer to your question, energy, actually. But do we want to do that still? Because we still need to figure out when, like for the standard, right? We need to actually interpret when personhood was given for the fetus, right? Isn't that still fundamental to this? Let me look up standards. I know, but if let's say under the standard law, the judge is going to interpret this against the mother and for the fetus, right? Wouldn't that mean that the judge has now interpreted the fetus's personhood point? I'm not sure yet because we still have, I think the personhood problem is still there. You understand what I'm saying, Bryce, right? Yep. Annoying. way. There we go. Getting all these different fucking so annoying. I guess I should probably just common rule like this again. Is it? No, I think everyone's just. I don't think so. No. No one said anything because I'm just researching really fast. Did you hear me say the question about personhood still? Like, even if we did standard, okay, let's just assume that the case interpreted that the fetus in this case is the one who wins, right? Hypothetically. Doesn't that mean that the judge has now interpreted a point that the fetus is now a person? Correct? Exactly. So he's bounding a point. If he does it at the 6 month or something like that, right? Then technically he's given personhood to that fetus, right? To be able to essentially. Well, that's the problem now, because now we're gonna have a bunch of different moments where people are giving personhood. So, if someone wants to abort a baby or a fetus, right? And there's no problems, does the judge not even? Is it not going to ever be heard by the judge? Or what if the judge does hear that and says it's okay? Then what is the argument that it can't just be, if it was 5 months that the judge said, yeah, you can abort your baby, your fetus, that's fine. What is the difference between 4 months and 5 months? I'm not sure, but we're talking about the personhood element, right? I don't think that matters. Wouldn't the court act on behalf of the fetus because the fetus doesn't have the ability to stand for itself? So it would be the state, right? I don't think anyone else could be able to do it, Bryce. It would have to be the state. So I don't think it matters who's bringing the suit. Just what the state thinks is appropriate here. Well, people think that abortion is murder. So it's always harm. That's the problem, right? The standard versus rules are pretty cool though. I honestly had no idea. I feel like this is a basic legal thing too. I probably should know that. But you see what I'm saying, right? Yeah, you're okay. If the state decides that they've interpreted that abortion, no matter what, is wrong, then what do we do then? Yeah, I would. I don't think it is wrong to be ethically pro-life. Again, I remember, Samurai, I don't like the term pro-life and pro-choice. I think it's unnecessarily dividing and doesn't really try to understand how people feel about this topic. Well, I think that kind of reduces its legitimacy, though, right? Because personhood is very important when it comes to this issue, right? So, like, if a judge interprets a case on behalf of the fetus, he's now set a point of personhood because the fetus has now been given legal rights. So if it's 5 months, day 2, then there is zero reason. Yeah. I mean, who else would it be on behalf of? So it's only if the father takes the woman to court that the fetus's life is given personhood? So fetuses are not people unless the father wants to take. But isn't personhood when we establish government rights, legal rights? You'd have to essentially make the fetus a person. Are you saying so it's only the father who can take this to like try and get standard? No. Personhood doesn't have to be with criminal. Personhood doesn't mean criminal. It just means you're. I think the consequences then, the right to private property, the right to this part, is how you can be sued, right? So I guess no, it's still civil. It doesn't have to be criminal. Yeah, but we're talking about the idea that fetuses being aborted are murder, though, right? So, like, what would you say to someone who thinks that abortion is murder in this circumstance? No, I know you're not. I'm just there's a vast majority of people who think it is. Oh, Bryce, you're gay. I'm sorry for my lack of legal knowledge. No, there can only be one me. Yeah, I mean, I don't really like abortion either, man. No one does because most of the time, in fact, even if you are someone who doesn't want to keep the fetus, right? It's a hard thing to do. It is. Then the father should be able to. Let me run from that question. So the father can accept. Wouldn't that give Bryce in this circumstance? Wouldn't that give the father the ability to invalidate the bodily autonomy? One of the most fundamental Lockean philosophies we have in this country: the right to one's own life. I mean, allowing someone else to force their significant other, wife, or whatever to carry a pregnancy to term seems just like a bad outcome. Except, what if she dies? Pregnancy is complicated. So the fetus is a person. But the fetus is a person then. And boy, you just said right there, bodily autonomy stops at harm. If we are assuming that harm is happening, then we've declared personhood. No, you're correct, Energy. What I will ask you in response to that is, are you comfortable legislating from that argument, knowing it will kill hundreds of thousands of women and ruin families? Hundreds of thousands of them. Is that something you would be okay with? And the debate over whether a person is a fetus is a person is not really a metaphysical one. Personhood, again, like Bryce was mentioning there, it's a legal term. It's not that it's not a life. Personhood is just the de facto moment that we give rights to something, a person, like a human being. No. What you said, you're okay. So Bryce, just to go back a second, you said, I said, wouldn't this violate the bodily autonomy of the woman, right? And then you said, but bodily autonomy stops at harm, right? If we are assuming that harm has been done, then that means the fetus is now a person, though, right? That you can cause harm to. Well, who are you? Who is the harmed? How's the harm being done then? Like, how is the bodily autonomy stopping at harm? Emotional harm? Like to him? You can put someone through, you can take away someone's bodily autonomy for like emotional harm? Like that? Energy, that's kind of what we already do though. Most, no doctors that I can think of are really giving late trimester abortions. Like they have the ability to reject, if I'm not mistaken. There's a choice. Someone can absolutely say, I don't want this pregnancy anymore, really late, but it's going to be a C-section. It's going to be expensive, and a doctor can just refuse, if I'm not mistaken. As long as, it's not like a defect or something, which the doctor would then be the one helping you consider that option. If you want to know my real opinion, guys, if we weren't mammals and pregnancy was not something that unfortunately is complicated, destructive, and horrible for humans as a species, it would be much easier to make this argument. Obviously, we would be able to just protect the rights of the fetus in that scenario, but we don't live in that world. We live in a world that sucks. And the truth is that because of the way mammals give pregnancy, it is violently complicated and sometimes horrible. Like if I could make the ethical argument against abortion, it would be very easy if we just weren't really mammals the way we are. Correct. Well, the argument there, which is much better than what Bogos was saying earlier, because now you feel as if it's like, no, I am considering the standard thing. I'm considering the standard thing. I think it actually makes way more sense than a rule, 100%. Like, my only problem still is, yeah, of course, is just that the moment that you would try to find personhood again. But the standard idea to me seems we should be able to look at the cases, right? Which the AI thing made me right away go like, huh? We don't do this? Like, for the father to claim that the bodily autonomy of the woman has violated and done harm to the fetus, I think the fetus would de facto at that moment be given rights by the government, right? Well, I think, I was going to ask Energy there is like, Energy has a theological argument, I think, and finds it morally wrong because a fetus is life. But to me, because I don't think being a life is the same as personhood, like what I'm talking to Bryce about. Giving personhood earlier than birth is going to complicate things inevitably because it's not very clear. It's messy, it's mammal pregnancies. We don't give animals personhood. It's a different definition. We don't give them personhood. Plus their birth. So animals are birthed. They're like outside of another animal. Are they not inside of a womb or are they outside of a womb? What kind of animal are we talking about? That's not really a gotcha. Are animals inside of the womb? Yeah. I mean, globalized. What would you say to that? Are animals inside of the womb or are they outside of the womb? What's going on here? You find me a single thing about animal abortion being charged as murder, please. Find me a single instance in which we charged an animal with murdering their baby fetus. Please. I will wait. Yeah. Can you link it? And Samurai, let's see here. Why wouldn't it be defending yourself as immoral? I don't know if I'd say defending yourself is a moral thing. I think it's kind of neutral. Oh yeah, I know who she is. Oh yeah. I know very well who objectivists are, who Ayn Rand is, how they're insufferably stupid.
If the government doesn't fund research, then who will? Because it's not a lucrative
Private companies will?
business. It's not something that private
You don't know that? The smartest people will?
investors would.
No, I asked you, find me a actual instance in which the government has literally charged someone on behalf of the fetus of an animal.
want to spend their time
Oh,
on.
you don't think
I've seen this.
it would be to the advantage of private investors?
Yep. Of course, private investors would investigate themselves, regulate themselves, and then penalize themselves. Choose the amount of penalization they would get.
To fund research? It seems to me that all the medicines, prescription medicines, all of the technological
Wrong.
inventions in
Wrong.
medicine are all
Wrong. I mean, Ayn Rand is retarded. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. The problem, again, the problem here is that, again, mammal pregnancies are not easy. People have normal pregnancies and they just assume that it's all fucking sunshine and rainbows. And then for like 4 or 5% of the population, we quickly realize again that, like, oh, fuck, this shit is awful. And it can get really awful really fast. And the problem is trying to find the point at which we think it's okay to be awful or okay to let the awful happen is not going to happen, because we're mammals and it's always life from the beginning. But what we need to decide is the moment at which we literally forcibly kill the mother or forcibly make the baby live until birth and die in 2 seconds, or why would we do that? No. Objectivism is not that well thought out. Ayn Rand was not a philosopher. Ayn Rand was a self-obsessed narcissist who wrote herself into her books, which was, I'm a genius, I'm going to fuck whoever I want, and smart people deserve everything because we're smart. That's literally her.
all making a fortune for the drug companies and for the hospitals, etc. In fact, Mrs. Clinton, among other things, denounces the drug companies for making so much money. So you can't have it both ways.
My brain hurts. It is. Isn't that funny? I have.
I would say, you see, you can't today
This guy is such an insufferable nerd.
have a long-range investment. But you know what I mean by a long-range investment?
With like a 10-year plan, 50 plan.
It used to be the case, that people signed 99-year leases.
I wouldn't call it ethical.
And they put money in, and they didn't expect to see the results for 20, 30 years. You couldn't dream of doing that today because everything now is so intermingled with government and pragmatism.
She was famous in America
And there's
in like the 80s.
so much
In the
intervention
60s,
in the
70s, and
system,
80s.
you have no idea what force is going to decide to do what and whether your investment is wiped out overnight. And therefore, all of business has become a kind of hit and run, grab today and get out. And
No. Boom bust cycles have always existed. In fact, can anyone tell me this very simple question, like the answer to it? Did we have more cyclical financial booms and busts before we had the central bank or after? Does anyone know the answer to that? In the US, of course. Anyone? You definitely want a Federal Reserve energy. is the Federal Reserve's policies. Something I think are good right now is the neoliberal quantitative easing fucking stupid inflation target shit they have. Like, good, debatable, but maybe. I think Kantian ethics can be fused with a bunch of different systems. You were someone who got me to start reading about egoism more. I don't know enough to have a comment. I have to read more on it. So I'm going to stay silent on that one. I find it to be like a juvenile idea a little, but that's because I don't know it well enough. I think more than anything else. Is that a fair description? And Samurai, I think we both know what happens if you do that long enough. What happens if you do nothing but, pretend that you're the most self-important, interested person in the world? Doesn't sound very Christian to me either. Like, selfishness is good, but malignant selfishness, a tumor type, is not. But you should have selfishness if you have a family. You should have selfishness so you can take care of yourself. You should have selfishness so you can take care of someone else. It's impossible without some of that. I definitely agree with you on the Kantian thing. I really like his meta ethics. For some reason, I don't know. I like it. I want to believe there's objective truth. Absolutely. I feel like it'd be stupid to say otherwise. I mean, think about it this way. How would you take care of your child, your family, if you didn't have self-interest? No. How would you take care? How would you take care of your family and your child without self-interest? How could they rely on you? They can't. So you wouldn't be able to take care of them. You mean you agree with me? Yeah. It would be impossible to take care of people that rely on you if you are unreliable and don't have self-interest. With Ayn Rand's? Well, for one, she doesn't have any epistemology. And two, she doesn't have any metaphysics, so she's an atheist. She thinks of herself as a rational thinker, but I don't really think of her as anyone who's advanced. She is, yeah. She's a staunch atheist. Metaphysically, she was someone who thought nothing of it. She thought it was all Fugazi. And direct realism, I think that's giving her too much credit. She was a self-obsessed rationalist who argued that property and freedom from were the most important parts to make sure that society can take full advantage of the smartest people in society like herself. That's pretty much Ayn Rand. I don't think of her as anyone who advanced like anything to the field of epistemology. Yeah, because, shocker, she thought that she was the smartest person on earth. So the self-interest for her was get everyone to think that she was the best outcome for everyone. It was purely motivated out of her own fucking self-interest. She didn't really care about anyone else's. She thought she was the best outcome.
Americans, unfortunately, invest less than most other industrial countries, partly because of the taxes and because there's no stability here
That is literally the dumbest thing I've ever
at
heard.
all, comparably speaking. So you can't really judge today.
Okay. Was it by Rand? I mean, you can listen to her or read her books. Was it from the Ayn Rand Institute, from people like Ben Swinger and shit like that? I ride a motorcycle, and that wouldn't be a reason I don't want to be a dad. I mean, the other part of that, though, is like where you live. If you can fucking ride a motorcycle, I don't know. It depends on your relationship. There might actually be a compromise there between the person that you have a child with because you suck ass at riding motorcycles. I don't know. If you can't fucking stop crashing, then I don't think it would be too unreasonable.
This is Leonard Peikoff
If you think about it. Ah, it's the Leonard Peikoff one again. Fucking Christ.
speaking in the fall of 1990. The following
You know this guy lies every single sentence, right? Like he straight up is retarded.
lecture is part of a course originally given in 1976 with Ayn Rand's.
The guy who started the Ayn Rand Institute, by the way, is Ben Swinger, if I'm not mistaken. You want to watch something about him? Me? Or him? Your friend. Yeah, Harry Benswinger is the guy who started it, right? So I thought he did. No, who's the guy? Who's the guy sitting next to him? Nah, we're gonna watch Christopher Hitchens fucking slap people. That's what we're gonna do. This shit's fucking hilarious.
What is morality?
So Ben Swinger here is one of the first objectivists.
Morality is a code of values to guide man's choices. There is only one fundamental choice: to live or not, to be or not to be. If one chooses to live, then one must act in a certain way.
I don't have a kid yet.
One must achieve certain goals, certain values. One must satisfy one's needs. If one does not choose to live, then no action and no values are possible or necessary. One simply sits and waits to die. Life, in other words, is the ultimate goal at the root of all values. Life is a self-justifying primary.
Very epistemological.
This is why you need a morality. You need a moral code in order to know how to live. And that means that the standard of morality, the abstract principle by which we judge good and evil is man's life. Every species has a specific means of survival set by its nature. This is a simple biological fact. Unlike the lower animals, man has the power of choice, but he doesn't have a choice over his basic nature and his basic needs. What is man's means of survival? How does man get his food, his shelter, his safety, his health, and so forth? Well, obviously not by any great strength of muscle or by claw or fang.
What's the moral principle in that?
Not by instinct,
Oh.
but by thinking.
Theism, well, objectivism provides an answer too. The purpose is to live for the material world. It lacks a metaphysical answer. That's for sure. But I don't think it means that it lacks a purpose in life. That would be reaching too far now.
By reason.
And I think this movement is one of the dumbest fucking things on the entire planet, Samurai. So I say that with like reluctance because I do truly wish I could say that. Like it is beyond retarded, okay? At one point this guy says that Arabs do not have a right to the oil beneath their feet because they're fucking savage animals, okay?
Reason, the conceptual faculty, is man's basic means of survival.
So like all of this fugazi he's doing right now where he's trying to make it sound like he's super fucking thoughtful instantly becomes a, wait a minute, your dad owns what again?
Now, this is the key to our whole
His dad is a multi-billionaire, by the way.
position, so I want to stress this.
I'm not mistaken.
Reason, thinking, the use of man's intelligence is his means of survival.
Sorry, his dad is the owner of Binswanger Glass Company, a very large glass blowing company.
Man survives not by appropriating pre-existing values the way that animals do, but by creating new values. The means of doing this is productive work, and by production I mean the application of reason to reshaping matter to serve human ends. It is not true, in other words, that wealth exists in some static quantity, like a natural resource, so that when one person gets more, another automatically gets less. Life is not a zero-sum game. Wealth is created, it isn't found. And the creation of wealth takes knowledge. Knowledge is available only through...
It's a misguided one. It's definitely a misguided one. Again, it stems from like a theological point of view most of the time, and the theological point of view is not there. So that's what really bothers me.
rational thinking. Thus,
But
reason
again, I don't
is
really like pro-life, pro-choice labels. I think they just kind of don't mean anything, but they do mean a lot of emotional things.
man's only means of knowledge and therefore his basic means of survival. Look around us. Right now we're in a man-made world. We're in a man-made environment. Electric lights, plastic seats, clothes from artificial and natural fibers from all parts of the world, a microphone system. Where did all these things come from? They came from the minds of the scientists who discovered the physical laws involved, from the engineers who found out how to translate that abstract knowledge into working instruments, from the entrepreneurs who risked their capital to bring these things to a market to serve human need, and in addition, the physical labor under the direction of the intelligence of the entrepreneur to produce them. The moving cause here, the basic source of all these things is not then the physical labor as such. It's not muscle power. It is not that we expend more calories of energy per minute than the caveman, and that's why we are here in an auditorium lit by electricity, and he is in the cave. In fact, we put forth much less muscular labor today than in any time in human history. We even go out of our way to create exercise because we find ourselves doing so little in our work. The actual source of wealth, then, is man's mind, man's rational thinking capacity. Now, it is true that some men can attempt to live without using their minds, but they can do so only by parasitizing the wealth created by those who did choose to think and work. It is still true that man's life depends upon thinking, even though some people mooch or steal the products of the thinking of others. Those others had to think. Now, a morality whose standard is man's life, then, man's life as a rational, productive being, cannot permit such parasitism. A rational morality such as we are advocating does not advocate the master-slave relationship or the robber-victim relationship, but independence. Men must deal with each other as independent equals, each man being an end in himself, not the means to the ends of others. Each man must stand on his own, achieve his own values, live his own life, earn his own happiness. He does get, of course, a value from the association with others. He's not a hermit. But there be no mistake about what we're advocating. We are advocating selfishness, rational, egoistic selfishness as the proper code for men to deal with each other. The reason is that selfishness is required by life as such. The opposite of selfishness, which means the achievement of your own values, is the surrender of your values, the sacrifice of a higher value to a lower value, or the sacrifice of a value to a zero, to nothing. Now, that is obviously the antithesis of life. Life is a process of value achievement.
He does say that. You're correct. But then you must realize that objectivism is not a real thing. It is essentially a bunch of fake actors who didn't contribute anything to any philosophy, but they sure like to say a lot of words. So half the stuff he doesn't actually believe. That is the principal part of groundwork on metaphysics, morals on metaphysics. Yeah. I mean, the categorical imperative is what you just said. There's the other imperative, which is not categorical, but categorical is the correct one there.
Full surrender of all values would mean death. Anytime you eat a mouthful of food for yourself rather than giving it to some starving Indian beggar, you're doing that on
because he doesn't know Kantian ethics. He doesn't know why Ayn Rand disliked it either, which is weird because Kant was very religious, but did everything possible to not use religion as his argument, which I think is fucking awesome, because he could have just been like, God, boom, but he didn't. But this guy's never read Kant, I promise you, okay?
on the principle not of altruism or self-sacrifice, but of egoism.
Which is very much using people as means to an end if you operate only out of self-interest, right?
Now, I want to be clear, rational selfishness does not mean sacrificing others to yourself. That would be inconsistent. Each man must be selfish, each man must live his own life, and men must trade value for value when they deal with each other. So we hold that man is born free, not only politically, but morally. You are not born in debt to others. You have no duties to others. You are not obligated to seek their happiness. You are the owner of your own life. Your life is not the means to any higher end. It is the ultimate end. As I said, it's your basic choice to live or not. Man is not a sacrificial animal. Now, in particular, we emphatically reject the idea that need is a claim. You know the slogan in the advertisement, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. We reject that because it's incompatible with human survival. A morality that sacrifices ability to need is a morality that holds suffering, lack, disease, impotence, failure as that which entitles one to receive values. The needs that must be considered are the needs of the producers, if you want to use that language. What social conditions are required for man to produce wealth? Well, since the production of wealth, I argued, is through reason, there's only one basic thing required. You must respect man's sovereign reason. This means one must oppose the use of physical force. One must deal with other men by persuasion, not by force. So a basic principle of capitalism is all interactions must be voluntary, because the forced is the anti-mind, and the anti-mind is the anti-life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Binswanger. Mr. Judas will join the debate.
I was happy to learn that we would be having a debate between socialism and laissez-faire capitalism, because I'm uncomfortable debating capitalism rather than laissez-faire capitalism. Since I stand for a fleeting ideal myself, I prefer to have to contend with another fleeting ideal. I should warn you that my views as a socialist are not necessarily representative of all socialists. In one sense, I'm a radical, in another sense, I'm a conservative. I'm radical, I suppose, in the sense that I don't think that the the German Democratic Republic, the East Germany, is either democratic or socialist. And I'm conservative in the sense that I think that socialism itself will evolve out of capitalism and share many of the features of modern democratic capitalism. Not only the parliamentary system and civil liberties, but also the rudiments of the market and small and medium-scale private property as well. Now, what is the moral basis of socialism as I describe it? Well, I'm going to say something that might seem paradoxical here, and that is that the moral basis of socialism is really no different than that of laissez-faire capitalism. Socialism comes out of the failure of laissez-faire capitalism to realize its own ideals. Those ideals are basically three. One, which Harry Binswanger discussed, is an ideal of man himself, of human beings themselves, having a higher capability, and of society itself being structured in such a way as to fulfill that higher capability. It's an ideal that comes from the Greeks, goes through Hegel, the Enlightenment thinkers. The other ideals are those of liberty and equality, and those were born out of the struggle to wrest capitalism out of feudalism. Liberty as the right to be free of inherited obligation, to be born not on a manner in which one's life was laid before him, but to have the possibility of doing different things with one's life. Equality, again, as being born neither in a particular caste or class, a rough equality, but an equality based on the absence of an aristocracy. Now, these three ideals of what one might call self-creativity, equality, and liberty were the ideals that informed Jefferson, Jackson, Lincoln, what one might call the democratic tradition in American thought. And the way that they conceived them being fulfilled was in terms of a society of equal small producers, in which each person or family would be roughly equal, would be free, and would have the power to control their own destiny in society. Unfortunately, these dreams were not realized. Instead of a society of small producers, we had a society of large producers, a society of classes, a society in which poverty existed alongside great wealth. In other words, the society that we know as modern capitalism today. And socialism, as an idea of the 19th century, was born precisely out of the understanding that that society of laissez-faire capitalism could never be, and that in order to realize it, you would have to have a somewhat different kind of society, one in which human beings themselves owned the means of production, in which there were no classes. Now, here's the difficult part, because, as I said,
Grand, they didn't think that far ahead. Because Harry Binswanger and Friend are the ones who win. He never said socialist. He said beggars. He used the word a poor Indian beggar, bro. And he said a quote from Marx out of context, which I think misses the whole point of that quote, but it's fine.
I said at the
Just know that, like, he doesn't actually believe in opposing sovereignty over one's own affairs. He definitely does love it when it protects his.
beginning,
Probably shouldn't confuse those two.
I'm a radical in the sense that I don't think that what we have today under the name of socialism is socialism. And I think we'll get to talk about that a little more in the debate, but let me just briefly explain what I'm talking about. Marx and the early socialists always assumed that socialism would arise only in highly industrialized societies with a democratic tradition. Highly industrialized because only in those
I don't think there's a moral claim there either, still.
societies
really
where people have the
Not
time,
everything needs to
but
be
the
moral
productivity
claim.
exists. In other words, where people would have the time to rule themselves. Democratic because only in those societies would people be educated, both in trade unions and parliament, to rule themselves. But socialist movements first took power not in highly industrialized societies, but in a semi-industrialized nation with a very scant democratic tradition, the Soviet Union, Russia.
But what is the moral part? The act of successfully defending yourself, or the act of doing it? Or I think it's just morally indifferent.
And socialism,
I think you could probably say that the person who committed it, if it was in error, was the one acting immoral. But what if I told you this right now? What if someone attacked you and you defended yourself, but the person who attacked you had a morally good reason to do so? Does simply defending yourself mean that you had a morally good reason to defend yourself? What if the police were coming to arrest you because you did something, or they had a warrant, and you shot and killed someone in self-defense, technically? What is the moral claim there? No, but they technically had the right to try and arrest you. So what is the moral claim there? I don't know, maybe you assaulted someone at a bar the night before, and a completely different person. Didn't pay your parking tickets. I think people have a right to defend themselves. I'm just Samurai is telling me that self-defense is a moral thing.
Itself,
And
as it evolved,
I just don't think there's a moral
came
claim at
to
all.
be not so much a specific
How is that not a realistic hypothetical? If the police come to arrest you because they have a warrant for you, and you defend yourself and kill one of them, what is the moral claim there? Okay, so that has nothing to do with self-defense. So the moral claim here is not about self-defense. The very act of self-defense is not morally good or bad. I think it's indifferent. Yeah, I don't think it is a good thing to kill that person. I think it's just neutral. And if it was a good thing, Samurai, we're implying that they deserved it, I guess. And we may think that's a good thing, but you are saying it's morally good. I think it's neutral. Not everything needs to be a moral truth claim.
social system after the name of Marx, but rather a means of vindicating or legitimizing
Okay, I still think it's indifferent. I think it's neutral.
a movement that stood for something quite different for socialism. Most of the societies that call themselves socialism are no more socialist than most of the right-wing movements that call themselves democratic. I'm sure you know
This
they're-
is
they're
the
both.
John Judas guy? Yeah, John Judas. He was a pretty influential figure in the 80s. He's a New Republic journalist, right? Yeah, senior editor at the New Republic. I mean, I think he's okay in this. I think Hitchens is. This is when Hitchens is on the cusp of like transitioning out of socialism.
Now, the question is socialism itself, as I'm describing it, possible? Is it possible to fulfill?
That's okay. I just think it's indifference. I don't really want to say that the act of killing someone out of self-defense is a morally good thing. I think it's tragic and just neutral.
Build this
on the
dream
moral
of
truth
liberty,
level.
equality, and self-creativity.
You didn't say that it is a morally good thing to kill someone out of self-defense? Might be. I think the act of self-defense that may end up in someone dying is not a morally good thing. I think it's just neutral. There's no morally truth claim happening.
There's a problem not only
I think when people ask you if what you did is an immoral action, you could say, no, I don't think there is any moral claim to it. We could say the person who attacked you committed an immoral action.
with existing socialist societies and the pall that they've cast over our notion of what it is to be socialist. But there's a problem, in fact, with Marx himself and the socialists of the 19th century. In my opinion, there's a fundamental error in Marxist thought, and that is what Marx understood, and the heart of what's valuable of Marx is that one society evolves out of the other. It both absorbs part of another society and it negates part of another society. That's going to be true of an economy of a socialist society.
High school, long time ago. Very popular book when I was in high school. Yeah. I mean, this isn't really about like whether what you did is good or bad, okay? Because I think the right to defend yourself could be said to be a morally good thing. The act of defending yourself, I think is irrelevant to the truth claim.
Society. That is, we cannot conceive
make sense?
of what Marx conceived of as a socialist economy was simply the negation of a capitalist economy in which no markets existed and in which economic power would be concentrated in the collectivity. What happened as a result of that is that the collectivity became the state itself became ruled by a political elite, and as Hayek and von Mies and various other thinkers warned, one laid the
How
basis.
did I miss that part? He mentions on me.
On behalf of Marxism, one laid the basis for totalitarianism.
You're
So
good.
what I'm describing as Marxism would have to be, in fact, a mix of laissez-faire capitalism and Marxism. What is called in the world today market socialism, but market socialism founded upon democracy. Thank you.
Again, energy. There is no Austrian economics in the world, so it's not something that you can appeal to say that it is good. It doesn't work. The ideas in it are interesting, and they sometimes are applied, but it would be like giving, asking a surgeon to do brain surgery when we've only just the way you learn that, the brain surgeon, what you find out is that he read a basic biology textbook, and you're like, wait, what about all the other shit that you need to know? It's just not an applied thing. No country on earth does Austrian economics as a philosophy whatsoever. It doesn't work. Just because people research and write about the history of it, political economics, doesn't mean it's even applied in the real world. Okay. There is no economics class that I know of outside of the history of economics or political economy that would ever even mention Austrian economics. Now, capitalism is not inherently better than any other ism. I think it's probably the most impactful and positive one so far that we've had, but it seems to me that a good mix of some form of socialism and capitalism in a mixed economy seems to be the best outcome at the moment. The United States is just stuck in thinking that you can't do that. And it's not working. It's been a long time of the United States literally not working at doing this, but doing it anyway. So I don't really want to say that one's better than the other. I think they could be used for benefit of the population that there is maybe going to do either or any of the other isms, and it needs to be decided on in real time and how it will benefit them.
The debate this evening is in essence about two issues. The first
This guy
issue
is so annoying, bro.
is why the initiation of physical force is immoral, and the second issue is which social system employs the initiation of physical force and which social system rejects it. Professor Binswanger has addressed himself to the question of what are the standards of moral value that we employ in arguing for capitalism, and I'm going to apply what he has said to the question of capitalism as a social system. I'd like to start by observing that a society is nothing more than a collection of individuals who are interrelating with each other according to rules, laws, customs, which pertain in that culture. If one asks,
So protecting the lives of other people in imminent danger is probably something we could say is a morally good thing, right? Even if it means using force. Is the act of shooting the man itself a morally good thing? So what are we appealing to here? The act of self-defense and shooting the person? The skill involved? Or are we appealing to some greater moral good here? I would argue we're appealing to something greater, something transcendental.
Asked, what is at the basis of these rules and these laws? One would discover that at the basis of these things lie certain philosophical principles, such as we have been discussing. Principles with regards to the nature of reality, the nature of...
And the greater good there is protecting the lives of someone else, even yourself, in imminent danger, not the act of shooting a gun. That one is neutral.
Man, what man's social needs.
And it needs to be neutral, because if it wasn't neutral, then it couldn't be both. Because it can be bad if you do it and appeal to some greater bad, moral bad, right? So it must be neutral in a way. Yeah, so you're arguing on behalf of something else, though, a greater good.
Needs are. That is why philosophical principles are at the heart of a social system. A social system, capitalism, socialism, whatever you like, the essence of these social systems is philosophical principles which underlie them. The fundamental identifying characteristic of any social system is the set of moral and philosophical principles which it embodies. And this debate really is...
Yeah. I mean, I read a lot about Austrian economics because I have Karl Menger's books. I have Hayek. I don't have von Mises. Thank you for that 1,000-page book. But that doesn't mean that it's going to work in economic policy. We just incorporate the idealism into economic policy. I know, I'm just using my chat box up here to go back. But you keep moving the chat box in, right? You would agree with me in this, right? I think I would. I think appealing to the greater good there, defending oneself, the act itself is not a greater good, but the defense of oneself, like the noun version, is probably morally good.
Is about the differing principles underlying socialism and capitalism. Now, before discussing capitalism as a social system...
It's a great book. I don't think anyone argues against inflation being the responsibility of the government. Who would argue against that? No, you're okay. I think the argument I thought was the best so far, Samurai, the one that I think has a lot of potential, would be the one about the uncontrolled consumption and the one-sided consumption that involves sex work. I feel like there's a spiritual argument there somehow. I don't know. I'd think about that one more. The MMA fighting one, I don't think is very good. But the selfish desires object argument, I think, could be made to try and even talk about how fighting is somewhat unethical in a lot of ways.
I want to remark on the state, on government as the central social institution. It is the enforcer of the laws, of the principles which are in place in the culture. It is the central social institution. It is the, if you like, dominating...
No. No, I don't think learning MMA or martial arts is unethical. I think the comment there was that fighting, like MMA, UFC, where you use your body as a object, like you're conflating it with sex work. If you go down that route, I bet you'd have to like probably start including public fighting and treating fighters like objects for money as part of the unethical behavior. Inflation is caused by monetary base. The relationship between monetary base and money supply. That's it. I don't know anyone who argues that inflation is a responsibility of businesses. When businesses raise prices, that is de facto inflation if it's across an entire basket. But businesses do not control inflation whatsoever. Unless they're doing price fixing. But that's not inflation then. That would be specific things. Or if the market is so centrally planned and it's massive enough, I guess it could be inflation by price fixing. Food comes to mind in the US a little bit, but that's not responsibility of the business. Okay, but your argument that I was bringing up, remember, Samurai, is that the unhealthy consumption of looking at people like objects, which is what UFC is. You don't know this person. All you care about is betting money on whether or not they beat the shit out of some other guy. What would you call that? Quantitative easing has like, that's like a fucking term that people seriously do not understand, do they? This is just easing the interest rate, okay? Or injecting money into, oh wait, actually, let me see. Maybe I don't know it that well. We don't really do too much of this. We sell a lot of bonds. The United States definitely doesn't really do much of government bond purchasing through government agencies, so. And it does increase the money supply. No, they didn't. Barely. The United States government obviously had to spend money to get out of COVID, but I mean, we just gave money away to the worst fucking people. Corporate bonds. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'm over here like, it's not really how we create money, so I don't really, it's not that big of a deal. Aren't you just treating them like objects then? I mean, you're just treating them as tools to learn. That's not what quantitative easing is. Where do you think that money went, man? And we didn't pump 7 trillion. 7 trillion total Yes, but the year before we did 6 trillion. We spent 6 trillion. That's not pumping. It's a loaded word there. I can definitely tell you got that from someone else. That's not how fiscal budgets work. Here. Where is monetary base? There it is. It is. And there's an argument to be made that it's kind of unethical. Is what I'm trying to lead you towards. I don't know if it's a good one, but there is an argument there. This is monetary base in 2020. This is M1. M1 is, as it says here, currency outside the U.S. Treasury, demand deposit to commercial banks, blah, 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 blah. And then it consists of less cash items, negotiable withdrawal, share account, demand deposits at thrift institutions, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't include currency in circulation, right? M2 is savings deposits, small denominations, balances in retail money market funds. Sorry, this is the long-term one. This is the short-term one. We used to have a bunch of different ones. I don't know the fuck they... I guess they discontinued different versions, but... So these are all related, right? Monetary base is essentially our stock measures of money. So measures of the money stock exclude deposits denominated in foreign currencies. And these. No. I don't think it is. Oh, that we absolutely did. But who do you think got the money? Energy dominant. I do this so much. What do you think the percentage of federal debt is held by private investors as it relates to Federal Reserve agencies? What do you think the percentage of private federal debt? Just guess. How much do you think the federal government debt, $37 trillion, is owned by private investors versus the government agencies? Take a guess. $82 right now. 82% is held by private investors. $82. So bad government policy for sure. But we probably need to recognize that the debt that we have in this country is not being made by federal institutions. That we don't have a government spending problem. We have a private spending problem. In fact, probably should spend more money through the government instead of making random loans through private banks so much. Try to find a way to demarcate why sex work is different than like an athlete being objectified. I'm not really sure. I think that'd probably be a good starting point. I think there's probably something there, right? Might be able to find something. All right, my friends. I think I'm going to end my stream now because I need to go back to Guitar Center and get new strings again because I hate the massive gauge strings I have. I'm going to go back to drop D because I suck ass. yeah, we can. Also, I'm tired. I'm so fucking tired lately. What's wrong with me? I think that's it, right? Mystic the Urge. Scary name. Me too. I'm just giving Samurai a sorry, we didn't do your government making thing today. We'll do next time. I'm gonna make a document, like I said. I didn't have it done. That way it's not like a bunch of me typing. But I hope you all have a wonderful night. Let me raid him real fast. There we go. Kind of fun to raid people. But I hope you all have a wonderful night. Thank you for watching, okay? God bless you as well, Samurai. Sorry. Hopefully you heard me. Tell whoever that person is I said hi and that